Baseball and Fan Cred. You can see us live on the app or streaming at www.fancredsports.com/on-air. And if you're watching us right now on the app, make sure at some point, if you ever have a question for John or I, or either one of our guests that we have coming on, just go to the top right corner. You can join the fan line button. You'll get put into a green room with our producer. They'll talk to you about what you want to ask us, and then you can come on live and ask us any questions you want. So we have a packed show for you today. A lot going on, obviously, in the world of baseball. Mid-August, things are getting a little crazy. We're going to be talking Acuna Jr., the future of Manny Machado, Bryce Harper, the A's, the Astros, Adam Jones, and we have some great guests. We're going to start off with one of our guests of the evening. Excited for this. For all of you weather fans out there, I know John, your wife, huge weather fans. We got Jim Cantore from the Weather Channel who's joining us. Jim, thank you so much for joining us here on Inside Baseball.
Hey, thanks, Jenny. Yeah, it's good to be here. Even though it's a little past my bedtime, I'm happy to join you guys. Always great over the years to certainly see John's insights on where he thinks the next trade is going to take place and this, that, and the other thing. So this is kind of a pleasure for me too.
Where are you located right now?
I am in a beautiful little suburb of Atlanta called Smyrna, Georgia.
Very nice. Very nice. Now, who's your team?
I'm a huge Yankees fan. Here's the deal. Even though I call myself a Vermonter, which is my home state, and I'm true to that, I was born in Connecticut. My dad's from New York. We lived in Beacon Falls. That's west of I-91, south of 84. That little quadrant of southwest Connecticut, for people tuning in, is huge Yankee territory. So there was no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And certainly given the past history of Red Sox Yankees in that time era that I grew up in, I'm happy I made that choice.
Jim, just a heads up also, my parents are from Brooklyn, New York. I grew up in Southbury, Connecticut. And I grew up watching the Yankees, and then I ended up working for the Red Sox, and it was a situation. Think about all those trades or those free agent signings between the Yankees and the Red Sox over the. I don't know how Clemens did that, but it's all about the dollar, I guess, as Joe Pesci said in Casino. But that's kind of tough.
Well, Jim, you have a lot of connections to baseball. I know you follow it very well. So I wanted to ask you, first of all, about your relationship with Mike Trout, who is a well-known lover of the weather. He is like my wife's family. They are from the Midwest. They're from Milwaukee. There's a lot of weather in Milwaukee. That's all they talk about all day long. Unfortunately, I think Fios is in a problem here with Weather Channel, so we don't get it here in New York. But back in Florida, we watch the Weather Channel all day long. So tell us about your other connections to baseball and to Mike Trout. And does he like baseball more than the weather, or the weather more than baseball? I'm not sure.
First of all, for the record, I would love the Fios thing to change, and you just never know. Okay. Secondly, Trouty is the real deal about baseball. I almost freaked out one time. I just saw this direct message from Mike Trout because I'm a huge, I'm like, of course I'm going to follow Mike Trout. He's like the face of baseball. I was like, wow, that really is a verified account. That really is Mike Trout who's DMing me about a storm. And we just got to talking about it. And he really is, especially in the off season. He's all about the storms. Hopefully one of these, we get a good blizzard on the East Coast and him and I'll be cranking it out together. So that's the goal right now, man. We've talked about it and he just loves it. He looks at, he looks at the models sometimes more than I do, which is, I'm just like, Trouty, Jesus, that's crazy, man. So yeah, he totally is the real deal. He loves it. And I swear to you, if he was not, a phenomenal baseball player, he would be a meteorologist. And hopefully, someday, but it's going to be a long time. He joins the ranks of meteorologists on the Weather Channel. That'd be great.
Baseball doesn't last forever. Now, I saw that he actually joined you. He was driving around during a snowstorm and sending you videos. Is that?
Yeah, they put me in DC, and I was texting him. I'm like, dude, are you out in this? He goes, yeah, I'm getting cranked right now. I'm like, you got to come on with us. I'm like, you got to come on with us. So he called the desk. He sent the video. We put him on, and he kind of voiced over the video as he was going around in it. So, I mean, it was his first true test, which he passed swimmingly. So Mike's ready. He's gone from now reporting in it to now needing to stand in it next to me and taking it. Certainly Thunder Snow would be tremendous for both of us. I know he would just flip out if that happened too, but he's ready. He's ready for the big show. No question.
We've been in communication now for a few days to set this up, and you told me that you get up at 3 a.m. and you go to pretty soon. I mean, I think you're stretching it to be up right now. I'm not quite sure whether it's 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock, but I guess you're at home being near Atlanta. You're rarely at home, though. So I'm interested in your typical day and how often you're on the road.
It's really interesting. This has been the longest drought probably in 20 years of not being on the road. We really just haven't had any significant weather events because, I think my specialty is more leading up to the event, preparing everybody for the event. And certainly, floods can happen pretty quick and there's a lot of aftermath stuff. So we've sent, very qualified reporters in to cover that sort of thing. But, it's funny. I went up to my boss today and I said, hey, look at me. I mean, I'm starting to twitch a little bit. I need to get out there. It's starting to get long. And she's like, well, you're in control of this thing. And I'm like, well, no, I'm really not. But it's the peak of the hurricane season. You never know. This is not the same year in the Atlantic Basin that we had last year, where it was one, it was Harvey, Maria, one right after the other, Irma. This is not the same year, but still, what I would caution everybody is, gosh, do we get something that all of a sudden blows up close to home? And, we're not watching it for 7 to 10 days come across the Atlantic, but all of a sudden here comes this thing that's rapidly developing in the Gulf of Mexico. And now we got 2 days to prepare versus 10. So that's when it's, trust me, I've done this long enough to always keep an eye out to what's going on.
What's the craziest storm you've been a part of? And then we'll tie this back into baseball, but.
Certainly the hurricane. Here's what I tell everybody. The snowstorms are fun. The blizzards are fun because typically, we don't have this mass casualty thing. People can go back to their homes and kind of resume their lives afterward. But when you have a hurricane or a tornado or a flood, it's awful. The hardship, going through that, seeing what people go through, it's really a big deal. Katrina was the big one. 30 foot of storm surge, to see the water come up 30 feet from the Gulf of Mexico. That's just ridiculous. To see casinos laying in the middle of the street, the Gulfport aquarium. Animals in the middle of the street. Just awful, awful things. I'll never forget that one. I frankly, if I never go through that again, or this country never goes through that again, that's fine. It really is. Nobody needs to go through that.
Yeah, weather can obviously do a lot of destruction. You are famous for your all these videos that you do. You are a superstar meteorologist. I don't have to promote you. Certainly, you have over 1 million Twitter followers, Jim Cantore, and Instagram, Jim Cantore, and you're on Facebook, TWC, Jim Cantore. But you're all over the internet with different videos, and you are very excited about the Thunder Snow. I love that video. That's one of my favorites. But in some of these videos, it looks like there's kind of danger, and when you watch it on TV, there's all sorts of stuff going on around you. And of course, there's that one video where it wasn't weather, but somebody came charging at you, and I think you basically took care of them in about a nanosecond. So I want to ask you, what's the most afraid you ever were in terms of the weather, or how does it compare to somebody charging at you? Were you equally as afraid?
You know what? We've all been stupid college kids at some point in our life, and stupid college kid. Jenny, John, if you know anything about self-defense, if you hit that target, you will drop that target immediately, and it will not be a bother to you at all. I missed the target to the north, and that's why he ran away versus dropped immediately. So, my whole dream there, what I'm talking about, Jenny. So my whole dream was to hit the target. He drops, I finish my segment, then I help him up before the end of that segment. But I just missed. Either way, that's one of those things. It is what it is, bro. And it's really funny because it all started in Nebraska about a year ago, where this guy came at me from behind and he just kind of attacked me from behind when I was doing my live shot. And I just flipped out afterward. I said, that will never happen again. I said, that will never happen again. I am going to fight this. And what's really interesting, if you watch some of the takes from other reporters across the country, nobody's taking it now. I mean, think about it. People walk up to you at your desk and maul you and jump on you and start, verbally abusing you. No, they don't. So we don't expect it as reporters and meteorologists in the field, and we're going to retaliate. That's just the way it goes. Get ready.
I would not tangle with you. I mean, we have security in our offices, but you're out there by yourself, and I guess people want a moment of fame. You talk about people being crazy. I'm not sure I was ever that crazy that I would charge at somebody who's on camera on national TV, but you're very kind to be nice to that fellow.
Yeah.
It is what it is. You know what? Here's the deal. I didn't do everything perfect in college. I didn't do anything that's stupid, but I remember my college days. Let's just say that.
At least you remember them.
Wow. Good point. Great point.
All right. Let's tie this into baseball a little bit. What's the strangest baseball weather that you can recall?
Oh gosh.
Tough one.
I mean, I may not be at it, but I mean, think about how many snowstorms we've had, even hailstorms, and especially Denver. Denver's kind of at the mercy of hail and snow, and it could be 75 one day and snowing and 30. I mean, it's spring games in Colorado. That's got to be brutal. But even this past year, I mean, think about what do we have? Like 28 cancellations. It's ridiculous how many delays and cancellations we had because of snow. Even the Twins couldn't even practice. I remember a couple times outside because it was so bad. So, our spring games and our desire to get more days off during the week can turn around and hurt us if we have an active spring, which we certainly had with cold weather.
I covered the Angels for 3 years, and they've been in existence since the early 60s. I'm not sure they've ever had a rainout. I could be wrong. They might have had 1, 2, or 3. So I feel a little bad for Mike Trout. He's in the wrong place for weather. But I was going to ask you, in terms of lightning on a baseball field, is there anybody who's particularly more vulnerable? Now, fortunately, we haven't really had an incident with a player, but is anybody more vulnerable in terms of the fans, the position that someone plays, and how has baseball generally handled this?
I mean, Major League Baseball has a rule that they're watching the games as lightning approaches. They're going to shut it down. You may never even get a drop of rain, but believe me, if they pull everybody off the field, it's because lightning is within 10 miles of the stadium. And I didn't ever answer your question before about my biggest fear out there. It's not the 30-foot surge. It's not the kid from Charleston College. It's really the lightning, because you rarely get a second chance with lightning. It comes quick. It can come, 10. There was a lightning bolt the other day that was about 45 miles from the parent thunderstorm. I mean, that's ridiculous. The most I had ever heard about was 25 miles. That's really long, but 45 miles from the parent thunderstorm. That's insane. Hey, look, if I get struck out there, it's my time to go. That's the way it goes. But I try to certainly take my crew and everybody out of lightning, because that's really my biggest fear out in the field.
Last question.
I'll stop the broadcast. I'll be like, guys, we're not doing this.
Yeah.
We're not doing this.
Before we let you go, do you feel that Major League Baseball handles rain delays correctly? Do you think that there's some times where they should play through the rain a little bit more, or is it the threat of lightning that is the concern?
I mean, lightning's the bigger concern. I mean, let's face it, you can play in lightning. In NASCAR, you can't drive in rain. So they're a little bit more, mercy, I think, to the weather. But, lightning's the biggest fear for the fans. And the other thing, too, when it's raining, especially in these spring games or even late fall games, if it's raining and it's 30 degrees, I mean, nobody's having fun, even the fan. So, it's umpire discretion there, but the lightning is the number one threat that we have to prepare for, and we have to get people out of harm's way for. And you know what? If it never happens, so be it. It's in the vicinity. That's why you've been asked to leave. Trust me.
Jim, your personality, your attitude, unbelievable, just fantastic about everything, incredible courage out there. And I did want to ask you, I ask everybody who comes on if they have anything to promote or talk about. And the one thing that's near and dear to you is that charity that has affected you personally, Fragile X. So can you talk a little bit about what that is and how you've been able to deal with this?
Yeah. Both of my kids, both my daughter and my son, are what they would call full mutation Fragile X syndrome. And for people that don't know what that is, the simplest explanation is, under the autism spectrum, it is the learning disability part of that. Asperger's falls under the autism spectrum, autism as well. I mean, there's a lot of similarities in some of the traits and things, but the main thing about Fragile X is it really is the learning disability part. I mean, I consider myself lucky. My daughter has a job. My son is as a boy, because you only have one X chromosome, you're typically in worse conditions. In other words, your learning disabilities are worse. But, I have very highly functional children, so I'm pretty lucky. But that's near and dear to my heart because it can be very severe for parents. And it's a really weird thing because it skips generations. I remember, my wife, my ex-wife and her sister had these 3 beautiful children. And I'm like, this is great. We're going to have these great kids and everything. And all of a sudden, of course, happened to coincide with the 2005 hurricane season, which was the year from hell for me. But, and I'm finding out all this stuff. But, all of a sudden we have Fragile X syndrome with our kids. And it's just like, oh my God, you gotta be kidding me. And it's one of those things where personally you have to kind of absorb it, deal with it, and realize it's better off if you embrace it and come down to earth with it and maybe help out and say, hey, look, you know what? I'm a father of a Fragile X child or 2 Fragile X children. What can we do? What kind of fundraisers can we do? What kind of awareness can we do? And frankly, I wish I could have done more over the years. But I certainly blame myself for not doing more over the years, but it's just something I've accepted. And I love spending time with my kids. It's the most wonderful part of my life. It grounds me. And, if you're a parent with Fragile X syndrome or autism or Asperger's, I feel you, but just live in their world a little bit. And it's kind of a neat world. It really is. It makes you laugh. It makes you cry. It kind of rides the whole spectrum if you go there. So that's my advice to parents.
Thank you. And thank you for bringing awareness to that as well. We appreciate that. And I'm sure that, anyone that's watching here, I would imagine that they can go on and find out more information, how they can help out. So thank you.
Fraxa.org, the National Fragile X Foundation. Those are all great areas to go. And so there's a lot of good research being done. Certainly, especially, if you can catch it early. Yeah. A lot of times you don't know till they're 5, 6, 7 years old that, hey, something's going on here. But if you can catch it early, that's one of those things that you can intervene and actually make some pretty good progress with. So, it's all about the dollar, guys. More studies, more dollars toward figuring out how to cure this, and certainly how to help kids along the way as they grow up toward that age of 25, 23 years old. That's going to help them all out. But just you know what? Here's the deal. If we're all happy in this world, that's all we can really ask for, right? Whether we got Fragile X, autism, Parkinson's, cancer, it's about being happy at the end of the day. Find that happy place and stay with it.
Well, thank you. You certainly made Inside Baseball a happy place for us here tonight.
Thanks for having me, guys. This was great. We didn't even get the chance to talk about the Acuna Jr. beating last night, which really makes me mad. I mean, the fact that we went there.
Before we go, what's your take?
All right. So first of all, I'm a Yankee fan.
Yep.
If I'm Derek Jeter, I'm coming right out the next morning before baseball does anything. I'm saying, guys, you know what? You're suspended for a week. That was wrong. That should have never happened. I want you to be a real baseball player. I want you to challenge him with your pitches. Okay. That was just so Bush. That was, what kind of an example are we setting for kids if we do that? Really? got a great because he can hit the ball on his first plate appearance of the day. No, you go after him with your pitches. That's how you handle that. Be the bigger man.
Exactly.
Anyway, that's all I got to say about that, guys.
Yeah, no.
Exactly.
I think we're all on board with that same sentiment right there. So, well, thank you, Jim. This has been fantastic.
Now you guys got me all fired up. I'm supposed to go to bed now. What's up with that?
It's bedtime. It's past your bedtime.
We appreciate you joining us here on Inside Baseball.
My pleasure, guys. Let's do it again sometime, all right?
Definitely.
John, Jenny, thanks for having me.
Thank
you. We could talk weather for an hour.
He's the best. What an attitude he has about everything in life. It's incredible example for all of us.
If more people could have that personality and that mindset, we would be in a much happier place. That's for sure. So our next guest is ready to join us. And this is going to be a fun one as well. Jayson Werth is joining us here on Inside Baseball, Fan Cred. He's joining us on the fan line. All-Star, World Series champ. Hello, Jayson. How are you?
Well, I'm good. How y'all doing?
Fantastic. The beard's looking good.
Well, I don't have a job anymore, so
okay.
Don't have to impress anybody.
You look great. So you've been in the news a little bit recently. You're sparking some debates about some super nerds that are out there. Did you think that those comments were going to blow up the way that they did?
You put a microphone or a camera in front of my face, and just who knows what's going to come out. I didn't give it a whole lot of thought going into it. It just happened. It's something I feel is going on, and if I took it too far and offended somebody, I'm sorry. I'm not sorry.
You're the best. You're the best, Jayson. I'm not going to press you too much on this. You've already been through it, but since we do have you, your issue with the nerds, is it that they are not really helpful to their teams, or are they not really helpful to baseball? I think some of the nerds have an on-base percentage, lifetime of 360. You walked a lot. You were like ahead of the game. You were ahead of the nerds and did that. And you were also great defensively, which is something that they look at as well. So your WAR is excellent. They would judge you to be good. So this is obviously not a personal thing, but is it more a matter of what you think they're doing to the game in terms of the home runs and walks versus action? Or is it, do you think they're just being overutilized in terms of front offices?
Yeah, I mean, those guys are smart guys. I mean, when I was playing my best ball, they like me, so I'll give them credit. I mean, those guys are, they're smart. They know what they're doing. I think they've been very tactful with how they've, entered into the game and coming up with new terms and I'll give them credit. They've gotten themselves jobs, that's for sure. But I think. Stats. Baseball is a game of stats, right? It's all based on stats and numbers, and that's why a lot of people love the game, and as do I. I think my comments more about those guys. I was just at an event with my kid, and I've talked to a guy that was with the Major League Scouting Bureau. He's been there for 35 years or 50 years or something like that, and that was recently disbanded by MLB. So those guys all lost their jobs because, the way the game's going with analytics, the baseball eye no longer is of importance. Now, we're looking at stuff on iPads, and these different companies have come up with these devices that measure all sorts of things, and that's how they're evaluating players. Maybe it's viable, maybe it's not. I've been playing the game since I was a little kid. I'm a third generation big league baseball player. The game hasn't changed that much in the last, 5 years to have all these different changes in the game, in my opinion. But I think with analytics, the one thing that I don't understand is the numbers and all this stuff is all based in the past. So it gives you a picture of what has happened. I think there's some things to look at that you could say, okay, probabilities, this is, the way it's going. But at the same time, baseball's played in the present. and even in the future, from a player standpoint. I've played with guys that like a Chase Utley who knew what was going to happen before it happened. And that's part of the game I think is being lost with the analytics. You got kids now that have what do you have, those quarterback wristbands? They got all this information on it. They go out there, they got where they're supposed to play in this count, this time of game, who's hitting, and they've got all this information on the wristband. Obviously we never had that, but I think there's an intuition part of the game that's definitely being lost.
Don't you think that there's some aspect of it too of the team character guys? Like I think back to when I was working for the Red Sox, and like a player like Johnny Gomes, who doesn't have the best stats, but he brought so much to the team. And nowadays, I don't know if he would have had a job because of analytics and sabermetrics and everything that's going on. Does that play into it? Yeah,
Gomer, one of my favorite teammates of all time. That guy brought it every day. Yeah, I think that goes along with chemistry. I've even heard that the teams have in their inner meetings, in their front office meetings, that they've said that I don't want to hear the word chemistry ever again. And that kind of goes to your point there, but that you can't quantify chemistry, you can't quantify those sort of things. So again, these I said the term super nerds. These guys, they don't know that, they never played, they've never been in a clubhouse. They're they're really smart people. But they can't quantify that on a piece of paper and on a computer, so that's not part of the thinking, and that's part of the game that I think is being lost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the Nats are one of those teams that still really relies on scouting, and they've had a really successful run with their emphasis on scouting. Mm-hmm. Obviously, this year is not going as expected, and I think Mike Rizzo had suggested maybe you talk to the team, and I didn't see if you have or not, but did you talk to the team, and what do you think? Right now, I believe they're below 500, and I picked them to win the National League this year. And on paper, they look fantastic. Do you have any theories as to what has happened to the Nats? Maybe they're missing you, or maybe they're missing something else. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Who's to say? But I agree with you. The Nats are deep rooted in scouting. Mike Rizzo, his dad was a scout. I think Mike was a scout. They do absolutely do analytics and have those guys in their front office, but they got a nice mix of what's going on there. What's going on with the Nats is tough. It's been a weird season for them. They had some injuries. I think I was still thinking that everything was going to be all right a couple of weeks ago, but since then they've had some injuries and lost some guys, and the bullpen is banged up, and they're, I'm not sure, is it 9 games or somewhere in there, 8 games?
I think 9, yeah.
They play the division a lot coming down the stretch. So who's to say? I think they play the Phillies. I don't know if they play the Braves as much as they play the Phillies, but I mean, I played on teams in Philadelphia. We, in 07 and 08, we were 7 back with 17 and 25 or something like that games to play. So I'm not counting them out yet. I think they still really they haven't made their run all season. So we'll see. This is the time for Bryce to really throw the team on his back and take him to the promised lands. I mean, this him being a free agent and the whole thing and the type of player he is, this is where he could, really make a difference. But it's not easy. It's not an easy task for anybody to do that sort of thing. But that's the type of situation they're in and the type of performance they're going to need from somebody. Zim got hot. He's been back off the deal. He's been banged up all year, but he's player of the week just last week or the week before, something like that. But it's going to take some sort of epic performance from somebody.
Would you consider Harper a leader in that clubhouse?
Yeah, I mean, he's not the most vocal guy that, he's not like a Jimmy Rollins type that, is going to be the outspoken spokesperson for the team. But he's definitely a lead by example kind of guy. He's the type of guy that, his play could spark could spark the whole clubhouse and the whole team. So there's different types of ways to lead, in my opinion.
I did something on FanCred today in which somebody predicted that Bryce would end up in Philadelphia. Of course, that's just a prediction from somebody who doesn't know him personally. Since you know Bryce personally, I don't know if you want to give away any state secrets, but do you have any predictions of what might happen here? Do you think the Nats have it in them to step out there and keep him? He asked you. I mean, you spent a long time in Philadelphia. You won a championship there. The word is that they're going to go big for Machado or Harper or both guys. Has he asked you about Philadelphia, and what did you tell him?
Well, I mean, we spent a lot of time together, so of course we've talked about Philadelphia, and we talked about a lot of things. Who knows what's going to happen? I think this next 6 weeks has a lot to do with how the offseason goes, obviously. But who's to say? I don't know what the Nats are thinking. I think really a lot depends on what happens for the rest of the way. But Philadelphia was obviously a great place. I know John Middleton, the owner, he's hungry for another championship. I know he's going to be aggressive this winter, and we'll see how it shakes up for them. They've been playing some pretty good baseball. We'll see if they can hang on. But the division is a lot different now than it was at the start of the season. No one was counting on the Braves to do what they're doing, or the Phillies, or the Nats for that matter. But I think there's a lot of time left. There's a lot of time left in the season. It's way too early to start thinking and talking about next year for me. This is when baseball starts to get fun.
You just found out that. Well, you just found out, you probably already knew this a long time ago, that you are going to be put into the Ring of Honor with the Nationals. So what does that honor mean to you? It's pretty cool. I played this game a long time. I've spent a lot of time in Washington. We really, when I came in, they were coming off 200 lost seasons. It was my deal with Washington was John, you remember, it was the laughing stock of baseball when it happened, from both sides. In 1 year, one short year, 2011 we played 500 ball. We weren't expected to do anything. And the next year we won the division, handedly. So I helped turn around an organization in a short period of time. That was kind of all part of the plan. I had the foresight to say yes. They had some offers out there to some other guys in previous years that were big name free agents that wouldn't touch the organization with a 10-foot pole. So I think in some respects it's it speaks to that, to me being the first guy to say yes to them and what they're trying to do, and the learners, but the family that owns the team, what they were trying to do, and I know we didn't win. We didn't get past the first round in my 7 years there, but we had our shots. It's tough to win. It's tough to win a division. It's tough to get to the playoffs, and I think we created a product in DC that the fans can be happy about. They can get behind. They can cheer for, and that's something to be said. It's something that they've never had, and for me personally, it was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. In Washington. So, it's quite an honor. I'm still keep in touch with Mike Rizzo and a lot of the guys. Obviously, have no affiliate with the organization, contractually or professionally, but a lot of ties there. A lot of good people in that organization. Made a lot of friends and family, and definitely honored to be put up in the Ring of Honor, I guess it's called, or whatever it is. But up there with some pretty special people, and we'll see. It's coming up here pretty quick, and they told me the other day I might have to say a few words, so wasn't expecting that. So we'll see how it goes. What made you say yes all those years ago when it was an organization that a lot of these players wouldn't even go close to? What was it about their pitch to you that made you believe in them?
Well, they gave me they finally got to 7 years and a no trade. My other offers were 5 years and an option, 5 years and two options. The money was about the same across the board, but I think the no trade was a big thing. I could go to a place and get set up. My kids were young at that time. The other destination was Boston, which was where I thought I was going. They ended up signing Carl Crawford and Adrian Gonzalez, and they traded all those guys within a couple of years. So, and you know the story there, of course. But that was a big thing. And the other thing was just I think the foresight to see what they were going to become. The guys that they had. Obviously, the Lerners are a very wealthy family. They were positioned well to spend accordingly. As time went on, it was kind of looked at as a 7-year plan where the last 4 years we were expected to win. It turned out we won 6 out of the 7, or at least expected to win 6 out of the 7. And then the off years that we didn't win, we were close. We weren't that far out of it. So I've been fortunate. I've played on winning teams almost my entire career, even from the beginning in LA. Won the division in 2004, and that's kind of where I kind of made a name for myself, and then went to Philly and had that run there, and came to Washington. And so as far as you look at a career, and for me, I always wanted to play on good teams and play on winning teams, and I was fortunate enough to make the right decision to go to Washington and continue what I started.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned it was a laughing stock at the time. I think it worked out wonderfully for both sides. I think if you look at the war, and maybe you're not into the war, but your numbers are so good that certainly justified the amount of money they gave you and the number of years that they gave you. So that was certainly a good decision by the team. And you referenced the fact that the team never quite got over the hump, not getting out of that first round, though you won so many years with 90-plus wins. Is there a theory that you have behind that? And also, I mean, Dusty Baker was pretty good to you, even though you may not have been at full health at the end of the year, and you were playing good defense, but maybe not swinging the bat like you normally did, and he kept playing you. Did you have any thoughts when he was let go? Were you shocked by that, like some of us were? And what did you think?
I don't know. I mean, I wasn't in on those decisions, obviously, but I think he got a rough shake. Dusty's the man. He's one of my favorite managers. Just a great human being. It's tough. The Nats, they wanted to get past that first round, obviously, and they felt like they would be better suited going in a different direction. One thing about Dusty is, he does a lot for chemistry, does a lot inside the clubhouse that people don't see. It's tough that you win that many games and you win 2 divisions, and then because you don't get through the first round of the playoffs, you get let go. I mean, that's tough. I don't care who you are. That's a tough shake. But we'll see if the Nats can pull this off. Then they're sitting there looking pretty good. But if not, then it might not be the case. But Dusty did stick with me, and I hear people talk about this all the time. In that last game, in Game 5, I obviously I lost that ball in the lights, and that cost us a run. But I had a pretty good Game 5, and I was coming off a tough season with breaking the foot, and that's the other thing with you can't help to get injured. If you have these traumatic injuries, if you get hit by pitches or diving for balls, running into fences, and stuff like that. People say things that I was injury prone. I mean, I had like 3 muscle pulls my whole career, and like 20 seasons. I had like 1 hamstring and 2 obliques. All my injuries were either getting hit by pitches or running to the fence or sliding and diving for balls. So, you mentioned WAR. Like if I would have played, I wouldn't have had those injuries. My WAR would have been way higher. You get killed on WAR. Another stat I'm not even going to get into. We don't have enough time on your show to get into that stat, but. Injuries definitely hurt your WAR for sure. And if things were different, I could have had a totally different career without injuries, but that's how it goes. Guys get injured. That's why you play the games.
You just mentioned hit by pitches. I'm interested to get your take on the Acuna situation. What's your opinion on how that all went down?
I didn't. I saw it. Obviously, I didn't see why. Was there something behind it? I don't. I don't know. I'm an old school guy. Um, you know, there's a time and a place. To send a message. Not sure if that was the time or the place, but that's what they decided to do. I'm assuming that was intentional. It looked a little fishy, but
Fishy, yes.
these guys nowadays, I will say these guys with these upper velocity, you got a chance to miss bad at times, and they can look bad. And it's not necessarily intentional. So who knows if there's something behind it, and they were trying to send a message. I've been hit in the wrists, more times than I can count, and a couple of those times cost me a lot of time. So I don't like seeing guys getting hit up there. You can send a message just as easy with a ball in the butt or the leg. Nobody likes to get hit no matter where, but you start hitting guys in the hands and up by the face. You definitely you don't like to see that.
What's next for Jayson Werth? Where do you go from here? You and I talk occasionally, so I know you're big into tennis. I know you're an expert in organic farming, and you have a little business with that. I know your son Jackson is a baseball prodigy who was named, I think, possibly for Reggie Jackson. I know your stepfather was with the Yankees, so I'm just guessing there, but you may be able to tell me more about that. But it seems like you'd be a great broadcaster. You certainly have an interesting perspective on the game. Do you have any thoughts about beyond organic farming and tennis, what else you might be doing? And working with your son Jackson.
Yeah, I think you got them all covered. I picked up tennis as soon as that's kind of been I've been dead set on that for a long time, just to stay in shape. And I was a decent basketball player as a kid, but I didn't really think I wanted to stay active, right, and keep in shape. And I don't know, something about tennis is something I've always wanted to do. I like I've been playing a team sport my whole life. I like the individual side of tennis. So we'll see. I've got my organic farming company I started a while back. I don't know if you've seen the news recently. There was the recent lawsuit out in California, I think, where it was the first person to win a lawsuit against Monsanto. I know it was a pretty big settlement, like $200 and some odd million. So I've been saying for a long time that I think organic food is the way to go. I've been eating pretty clean, and started this farming deal a while back, and converted everything to certified organic, and looking to grow that. That's kind of what I'm going to put most of my time towards, business wise. I'm more of a manager than a farmer, but I do get in the fields from time to time. I'll have more time for that now as we go, so we'll see how much I get involved. But it's kind of that's my passion at the moment. Might look at the TV thing. Try to stay in baseball somehow, maybe in a front office or with broadcasting. Not real sure how much I want to get into it. I don't think coaching or anything on the field for right now. I got too many things going on. Those guys got rough jobs. Those are like the most thankless jobs in the world. They put almost twice the time into it as the players do. That's really not what I'm looking to do. I spent enough time in the clubhouse. I'm enjoying my time away.
Are we going to see you on any high school fields hitting home runs coming up? How did that even come about?
I can't get away from that. So here's the deal with that. So if you remember last summer, there was the congressional baseball practice that there was a shooter that
yes.
He hit one of the congressmen. There's like 4 people shot. Congressman Scalise, and this kid Matt Micah, who was like their coach. He played in college, and he was kind of like, I think he works in DC doing something for Tyson's Foods. He's a lobbyist. There you go. And he got shot twice. So I was on the DL last year with a broken foot, and I got a call from somebody with the Nats, and they said, "Hey, would you mind stopping by and seeing this guy. He got shot, and I was like, oh man. So I went to the hospital and saw him, hung out with him for a little bit. I was like, hey, let me know when you're better. We'll get you out at Nats Park. You can come to BP, hang out for the day or something. Anything that we can do to help you get through this. I mean, these things shouldn't happen, but I feel like they definitely shouldn't happen on a baseball field. Like I've always looked at the baseball field as a sanctuary. It's a tragic occurrence when they happen anywhere. But since it happened in kind of my jurisdiction, we wanted to take care of Matt and have him out. So became friends with Matt. Long story short, he gets back on the field and says, "Hey," texts me. He's like, "Hey, I'm back on the field. I'm healthy. I'm healed. Would you come out and play with us?" This is after I retired. This like a couple months ago. And I was kind of like, I don't know. I mean, I quit baseball, and about the same time, Adam LaRoche called me and had this deal. I got this shirt on, I guess, the Bluegrass World Series in Louisville. It's like retired players. You guys might have seen it. That was a pretty good deal. Retired players playing against college teams. Got back on the field. But like a week before, Mike texted me. He was like, "Hey, come out and play with me." I was like, "Actually, I need some work because I'm going to go play in this tournament." So I joined the league, joined the team, went out there. It wasn't exactly what I thought I was getting myself into. The pitching was 60 and 70 mile per hour fastballs instead of closer to 80 mile per hour fastballs. So it was a little bit of adjustment. I walked, I struck out, and I think that's what I walked and then I struck out. And then the pitcher was mouthing me a little bit. So I got the 3-0 and I've always been a pretty good 3-0 hitter. And he laid something in there and I hit it over the trees. So that was fun. Somebody caught it on video. It's, I was with my kid last weekend. We were at this, 16 and under event. Like that's all any of these kids wanted to talk about. Obviously they've seen it on social media or whatever. So I can't get away from it. I can't live it down. It happened. It was fun. It was, it's better going 1 for 3 with a walk and a homer than going 0 for 4 with 3 punch outs any day of the week, no matter where you play.
That is so true. And I'm sure everyone else that was there on the field or fans in the stands were probably like, holy.
It was the first time I hit a homer and smacked fives with everybody on the field going around the bases.
See, that's a fun experience.
Yeah, it was all right.
All right, John, you want to wrap this up? Got any final questions?
Yeah, I'll ask one more question. Put you on the spot a little bit here. When you took over your own agenting there at the end, I think you had told, maybe it was Howard Eskin or somebody, that you called 29 teams or 28 teams or something, but not the Mets. Was that just from being in the division with the Mets? You couldn't just see yourself playing with them, or was there something else going on there?
I mean, well, I will say that I did call all 29 teams. The first call I made was to Mike Rizzo. The second call I made was to Brady Anderson. I've known Brady since I was a rookie. Obviously, I have good relationships with the Nats, and I did call 29 teams, except the Mets. And it's just one of those things. I think after playing the division all those years and playing against them, and I think I just couldn't do it. I think if you remember right, the GM for the Mets at the time, he was even criticizing my deal when I came to Washington. So.
Right. That was his job. That was his role in the committee. He was the hit man who criticized the big deals.
So there was a lot of things, just playing against them really in the rivalry. I don't know. I think I'm trolling at this point more than anything else. Just
I love the way you refer to it as I called all 29 teams, as if they don't exist.
Yeah, there was something I saw in the subway in New York early in my career that is kind of like, I don't know if it's always stuck with me. And, I love New York. Listen, that's one of my favorite places to go. We got beat by the Yankees in the World Series in 2009. That was an incredible experience. I'll never forget it. My dad was a Yankee for a short period of time. So I love New York. Obviously, I'm just kind of talking smack, but there was something in the subway I saw. I don't remember when, if it was all the way back when I was in LA, or if I was in Philly. I was taking the subway, so it had to be early in my career. I didn't continue taking the subway for much longer. Something about being underground, I don't know. But the sign said, "Welcome to New York, home of like however many sports teams they have. Welcome to New York, home of X amount of professional sports teams and the Mets." I don't know where that came from or who put that up there, if that was even a real thing or not, but it just popped in my head, when I was on the podcast with Eskins, and I said I call all 29 teams, except for the Mets. But that's actually, it's true, but that's what came to mind. So that's how that goes.
Okay.
A lot of respect for the Mets and their fans. We've had a lot of fun over the years. I think some of the funniest things I've ever heard in the outfield were in either Shea or the new ballpark there. It's always fun going in there. It's a great rivalry. When the Mets are good, I've said this before, when the Mets are good, baseball's good. So hopefully they can get it going. But not for me.
Very good.
Perfect ending. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your night and joining us here on Inside Baseball. We would love to have you on again, and good luck with everything that you've got going on in your life. Busy
Thanks.
man.
I got some time on my hands now, so give me a call if you need me.
Okay.
Will do. Thank you.
See you.
Awesome guy.
Oh. He is a great interview, I got to say. So he should be a great broadcaster if that's the route he wants to go.
He could be. So we only have a few minutes to go. I just wanted to get your take on a couple of the hot topics that are going on right now. We've obviously asked both of our guests about Acuna Jr. and their thoughts on it. I would like you to dive in and give us your opinion on that situation.
Yeah, I don't like it at all. I mean, it looked really bad. I think it was intentional. MLB ruled that it was intentional. They seem to have a thing where they suspend starting pitchers 6 to 8 games, something like that. He got a 6-game suspension. I think that's a precedent. I think he deserved more than that. That was not the right thing to do at all. This is a guy, I know he's hit a lot of batters, but hit the first batter of the game. I mean, he's a professional pitcher. It did not seem very kosher to me. I think I did a little research, and the Marlins have played, I don't know how many games, but thousands of games in their history. And only, I believe, 4 other pitchers have hit the first batter of the game, and twice it was Charlie Huff throwing the knuckleball. I mean, this is not going to happen if you're not intending to do it. So I am very down on it, and I thought he deserved an even longer suspension. But I get MLB. There's a precedent. They're not going to get away with it. The union has something to say as well. So I do think they could rewrite the law, though, and give somebody a longer suspension who deserves a longer one, and he did.
We have a question on the fan line from James. Said, if Urena was a position player, how long would his suspension have been? How long would Acuna's have been if he charged the mound? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, they don't like charging the mound. You could get more for charging the mound, but for me, I'm not into any kind of barbaric behavior at all. So to me, throwing a baseball when you throw 97.5 miles an hour, and that can really hurt somebody badly. Charging a mound, we've seen baseball players fight. Usually charging a mound does not work out very well for the guy charging the mound, whether you're Robin Ventura or anybody else. It just doesn't work. Baseball players are great at their skills, hitting, throwing, not good at punching. And, this is the way to do damage, is to throw the ball 97 miles an hour and hit somebody in the wrong spot. So to me, that's the one that deserves more. But, if you charge the mound, you might get more.
As a wife of a player that has been hit by 2 pitches that have, shattered a wrist and a hand, it's crazy to me that this is even, and I know with the old school baseball, it's part of the game, but it's crazy to me that it's acceptable. And I know it's a 6-game suspension, but that's one start. You can literally someone's career. This kid is out here doing an amazing job, making history. And because you don't want it to happen to you, or you're trying to teach him something, it just seems unacceptable.
really wrong. I'm with you 100% on that.
Is that something that you think Mattingly called for, or is it?
No,
like,
I don't. No, I don't believe that. He's not like that at all, and I don't think any major league manager would call for something like that. I understand Acuna has been beating them up, and he's fantastic for the game. Mattingly's very competitive, but he is certainly not barbaric. So I do not believe he had anything to do with this, and that's the way it seemed to play out as well.
What do you think the repercussion of this is as far as future games? I mean, now is it going to be who's going to get who next?
Yeah, I mean, I do think even though we can all agree that what he did was wrong, there is certainly a segment that thinks that retaliation is okay. And, I guess retaliation could serve as a deterrent for future barbarism, barbaric behavior. So, I expect there'll be some kind of retaliation by the Braves. I mean, it's a shame that it got started in the first place. I understand why they are upset. They have every right to be upset. The fact that it was slightly delayed as they were thinking about what happened, same with the umpire. I see nothing wrong with that. The Braves were 100% in the right, and I'm not in favor of retaliating or any kind of violence, but, that's the way baseball is. I think that's more of a normal along the lines of normal behavior than just taking a 97-mile-an-hour fastball and throwing it at a great young player's wrist. That, to me, is crazy behavior.
Completely agree. Moving on, you have some reports that you came out with about this upcoming off season and Machado and Harper and where they could potentially end up. You're saying both are interested in New York.
Well, I have heard, and they're not going to come out and say anything now, and Harper has been instructed and has steadfastly said nothing about it starting in spring training. I have heard from people close to Manny Machado that he would love to be a Yankee. We know that he has been close to A-Rod in the past. He's been a mentor of his. Obviously, we know Alex's whole history with being a great shortstop and then switching over to third base. Manny isn't exactly that. He's a great third baseman who's played short. He said his dream is to be a shortstop, but I have heard that he's interested enough in the Yankees that he would go back to third happily. We will see. They have probably the rookie of the year in Miguel Andujar as their third baseman right now. So it is not a perfect fit. So the result of this may be nothing, but it's interesting to note that from what we've heard, he is interested in New York. Bryce Harper, I've heard, I think every big free agent is going to have some interest in New York. It certainly helps with your negotiation, but we know that Bryce Harper's father, Ron, who helped him win the home run derby, was a big Mickey Mantle fan, and Harper wears number 34, which is 3 + 4, in tribute to Mantle. At least that's the story, and he might have an interest as well. Not as certain there because he's been pretty quiet about things, but and again, a tough fit. The Yankees have a lot of great corner outfielders and outfielders too. Hicks is a good player too, so not a perfect fit for either one. I think the Phillies are probably going to get one of them, and that's what everybody thinks. They're out there going to spend, and as Jayson Werth said, John Middleton, their owner, is determined to win.
Which one do you think would fit better into the Phillies organization and their needs right now?
Somebody for the stories guessed that Harper is going to end up with the Phillies. It's possible. They've looked at right field a little bit. They have Nick Williams, who's done okay there as a rookie. Has not really hit lefties, but he's good against righties. That's a possibility. I think Machado makes sense for them, though, and he could play there potentially. Right now they have Asdrubal Cabrera, who is really not a shortstop and is a free agent anyway, so he wants to play shortstop. So that could fit Michael well at third now. So, it could be a fit. To me, I think Machado, if I had to guess one or the other, I'm going to go Machado. I won't be shocked if they talk to both of them. I'll be a little surprised if they sign both of them, though.
Want to wrap things up with a question about the Oakland A's. I mean, they've been so hot. The Astros banged up right now. I know that they're getting George Springer back on Friday, but do you think that what is your take on what Oakland is able to do right now and how they're handling the division?
It's amazing. It really is incredible. I don't think anybody has them as a playoff team. When they started playing well, people started to take notice, though. They certainly have a great chemistry. Jayson referenced that, and I do still believe in chemistry, and it did appear they were going to take off. I didn't think they would get this close to Houston. Obviously, Houston has lost some close games. They haven't hit like they normally do with Altuve and Springer out. You're right, Springer expected back on Friday. That should help Houston. I still kind of think Houston will hold them off. Don't go by my predictions, though. I had Houston versus the Nats as the World Series this year. Obviously, at this point, I know Jayson Werth has some confidence that the Nats will come back. I don't share that at this moment, so I think half my prediction is already in big trouble. But I do think the Astros will hold on in that division. I think Oakland will be in the playoffs as well, though.
What would you say is Oakland's weak point?
You would think, looking at the on paper, it would be the rotation. They brought guys back that were there 10 years ago. I mean, to think that Brett Anderson is part of that rotation and Cahill, I mean, to me, it looks like Manaea. He's a really talented young guy, obviously threw the no-hitter earlier. So he's a good game one starter, but I mean, they're piecing it together. Bob Melvin's done an unbelievable job. It's going to be interesting to see whether Alex Cora is the manager of the year or Bob Melvin. They've both been fantastic. So hard to pick between them. But on paper, to me, the rotation looks average at best. And, it's amazing what they've done with everything. It really is. And I have to give them credit. Bob Melvin and Billy Beane and Dave Forrest, all of them deserve all the credit in the world. They have the lowest payroll in baseball. The team with the highest payroll is the Red Sox, and that has shown. The team with the lowest payroll has been the hottest team along with the Red Sox. It's pretty funny how that has worked out. The middle teams need to start working a little bit harder, I guess.
Either they need to spend more or spend less, and they'll be just
yeah.
One of the two.
But it certainly does help. I mean, the teams that have spent are generally pretty good, the Cubs and the Yankees and the Dodgers. So I do think that it does help to spend, but it just kind of shines a light on what Oakland has been able to do with a very limited payroll.
Those analytics, All right.
Jayson got a little trouble for that, so he tried to be a little bit nicer to the analytics people today.
But we had to ask him about it. It was only fair. It's only fair.
It is, and he's great about it. So that's why he's going to be a great broadcaster and not just an organic farmer and famous tennis player.
Which is also pretty amazing. Two very impressive skills that he has there that people probably don't know about. So thank you for bringing that to light. And that's it. It's 9:02. Wow. This hour flew by. So thank you all for watching Inside Baseball and Fan Cred. We'll be here next Thursday, 8:00 p.m. Make sure to download the app, and then you can come and join us on Inside Baseball. Ask us any questions that you have. We're going to have some awesome guests again next week. So everyone have a happy Thursday, and look out for any tweets that are coming from Fan Cred, from John, from myself. We'll try to answer them throughout the week, and we'll see you next Thursday, 8:00.
See you Thursday.